Now here's a neat find. Woodpecker has been at work. It's probably a pillar over.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of Birding with Bob. I'm Martha Weaver with Anoka County, and I'm joined by our adult education specialist, naturalist in easy terms, Bob Holtz, who's going to talk to us about one of the most daring, talented groups of birds, and those are the flycatchers. Talk about the flycatchers as a family of birds in Minnesota.
Well, for one thing, they are a group that certainly illustrate the fact that birds have an excellent eyesight. They typically will sit out on a dead branch in a tree and basically wait for lunch to show up.
Okay.
And lunch might be a fairly small insect even. And they'll dash out 25, 75 feet, grab that insect and come back usually to that same branch. And if we were doing that, we probably wouldn't even, if we were sitting up there I should say, we wouldn't even see the insect possibly. And we certainly wouldn't be able to dash out and get it. And that's just a typical way that you see them behave. They are pretty good at catching a moving target. They also usually found on the outer edges of wooded areas.
Are there a lot in Minnesota?
We don't have a lot. We have maybe 8 to 10 regular species with a few others that are a little rarer. But in the world, there's over 400 species of flycatchers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just loaded with them.
Well, what are some of the most common that someone would be likely to see in Minnesota?
Probably most common might be the eastern Phoebe. And you'll notice it doesn't have the word flycatcher in its name.
Right.
They don't all have that. They can be found spring, summer, early fall, throughout the state. All 87 of our counties they've been seen in. I once saw one on December 20 doing a Christmas bird count in Roseville.
Oh, I bet that was fun.
Unusual, yeah, but it was
Were you
definitely
surprised when you saw it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was the earliest, or excuse me, the latest or second latest sighting in Minnesota.
He was either really late or really early.
Yeah, one of the other. Phoebes are about 7 inches in length compared to robins at 10 inches. And you need to keep in mind when we talk about measurements of birds, it's tip of bill to tip of tail.
Okay.
So there's not that much body there often as the name, the number might lead us to believe. They're kind of a grayish brown on top with a dark bill. They have that typical flycatcher habit of dashing out from a tree branch, grabbing an insect, and coming right back to the very same branch. In addition, though, Phoebes have a signature behavior that says, I'm a Phoebe. When they come back, they land and they wag their tail a couple times.
Okay.
And I've even once seen them do horizontal. That's not typical.
Their wing flaps.
Yeah.
Their tail flaps.
Yeah. As far as small flycatchers, no, we don't have big ones.
You said the eastern Phoebe 7 inches?
Yeah, and our littlest one is appropriately called the least flycatcher.
Okay.
And it's only about 5 inches. And there are others just a hair bigger than them, 4 other ones, but they're colored so much like them that they're very hard to identify.
So how do you do that then?
The basic way is if you can hear them sing.
Oh.
Our state organization keeps track of records. There are a number of us that send in our sightings from every season of the year.
Okay.
But if you don't say you heard that particular flycatcher singing, it's not considered a valid observation. But if they sing or vocalize in any way, you'll be able to tell which one it is. The least flycatcher tends to sing chibak, chibak, accent on the second syllable there. So pretty easy.
How about big ones?
We don't really have any big ones either because we don't have a flycatcher that's even as big as a blue jay.
Oh, really? Okay.
So about our biggest would be the eastern kingbird, and it's at roughly 9 inches in length. They have a dark black head, black tail. The tail has white tips on it, and the back's basically a dark gray, but depending on the light, that might look black to you also.
Okay, and those are pretty common.
Pretty common, yeah. Underneath, they're nice white from throat down through belly.
Okay.
And you tend to find them out in open areas that might be grassy, scattered trees and shrubs around. And from there, those perches on those branches of the trees or shrubs, they will watch for lunch to come by, or it's a good place for them to make sure that there's nobody coming into their territory that they don't want there. They tend to be fearless birds. They drive out other birds that are even bigger than them.
When I see an eagle or a hawk and I see another small bird that looks like it's really pestering them, could it be an eastern kingbird?
It's one of the possibilities, but
Seems very
there's
brazen.
lots of small birds that can outmaneuver bigger birds and chase them when they're in their territories. Yeah.
Any other common Minnesota flycatchers that are as big as that eastern kingbird, or they get smaller from there?
Most of them are smaller. The next biggest probably would be the great crested flycatcher. It's about an inch smaller at 8 inches. Best way to find them usually is hearing them,
Okay.
which is true of a lot of birds, but they have a rather loud weep, veep call they make. It's a one-syllable kind of call because they tend to sit rather quietly in trees and just kind of, again, watching for their lunch to go by. But they eat, they're a little different than some of the other flycatchers. For one thing, they eat a lot of berries compared to other flycatchers.
And nesting is different too, correct?
Nesting is quite strange. They're cavity nesters compared to all the others, and they have the unusual habit of lining their nest with the shed skin of a snake, or at least part of a shed skin. And when I taught ornithology class, I would always mention that, and I had a student who, a couple years after he had graduated, we were out birding, and he said, you know, when you told us that about that great flycatcher, great crested, and snake skin, he said, we always thought you were just kind of checking to see how gullible we were. But he said, I found a nest in my yard and checked, and it did have a piece of a snake skin in it. Yeah. Yeah.
How about flycatchers as unique birds? Are they quite unique?
Well, the unique ones would be the small ones, which are also very difficult to identify, at least by color. You know, as I said, if they vocalize, it's not so bad. For example, we have an eastern wood pewee, you know, another one without the word flycatcher in its name. It looks a lot like the Phoebe, but its head's not quite as dark, its wing bars are more distinctive, and it has a slight orangish tinge to its bill. And if they sing, again,
There's no
doubt about it. Yeah, they will sing pee-o-wee or pee-er, pee-er.
Or they go down in that
Yeah,
last
that's
note.
two different vocalizations, yeah, that they use, yeah. Yeah, songs are a good way to identify birds, and absolutely there are a lot of different birds that look alike, but sound quite differently. And I think if people would like a little challenge in the bird world, flycatchers would give them that challenge, because there's some there that are very hard to sort out.
All right.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us, Bob, about the family of birds in Minnesota called flycatchers.